Brandon with Besus Productions back here again for Video Dev Blog Volume 7, detailing development of my 3D platformer in Unity 3D, now Unity 5, Besus Journey for Vitality. So without further ado here, the first major enhancement that you'll see is the old flat kind of cartoony outline look is gone. That is courtesy of Unity 5 and its new rendering capabilities, specifically with its new standard shader here. So I've overhauled every single texture to include a bump map. As you can see here, some textures even have been replaced entirely, such as the grass texture, a better dirt texture, things like that. Checking out players, for example, you know, a minor bump map on that. I could have made it look a little more bumpy, but then he kind of looks like he has a weird disease, so had to scale it back a bit. But all in all, the bump maps really make a lot of the characters pop more so and kind of look like something out of a Disney Pixar film, you know, instead of something that's kind of unsure of its cartoony look. So above all else, yeah, the look itself has been changed drastically. You know, water, for example, has a more realistic look to it to kind of match the better detail of everything else around it. Everything's kind of got a nice bump texture that makes it all look really sharp, in my opinion. If you're a fan of the old look, please don't hesitate to let me know, but I can't promise I'll go back to it because I've kind of just fallen in love with the new shader here and how it makes everything just have much more realistic of a look to it. And of course the standard shader plays great with the light. So that being said, all the shadows right now, I have not baked any new shadows or baked any light mapping, so all the shadows that are being rendered here are real time, so the performance isn't going to be great, but added some details here as well. For example, my grass textures. One thing I did use for this to place all these different grass clumps around here is a script I wrote that basically snaps any selected object to the surface it's on. So if, for example, we take a grass clump I've got here and just stick it there, you know, not an optimal spot, but I can pretty much just take it, choose from here and align to surface and snaps them all to the surface. Conversely, oops, guess I can't undo that. I also used one for rotating them to the surface for the underwater foliage, where it came in more handy because some of these look kind of weird standing straight up, so I wanted them to rotate when you snapped them down. So that was infinitely beneficial here in getting a lot of these details placed. So as I placed the details, I did notice that my draw calls did go up significantly. Originally, I had created different grass using the tree system here, but upon adding a wind zone, all of these grass blades were animated, so it really took a big toll on the processing. So instead, I've gone ahead and changed them to just a simple, you know, flat, not flat 2D billboard kind of thing, but more or less just a minor 3D model with a texture and alpha channel to mask the outside. Beyond that, yeah, getting back to the camera here, I'm basically putting things on different layers. So for the grass here, you'll see it's foliage. I've got a foliage layer, I've got a water foliage layer, coins, boxes, and terrain. Terrain is more for the pause menu, but coins and boxes, for example, will fade out in the game after at a certain distance. I can actually show you the foliage being culled out from the distance. So to specify here, each layer has its own cull distance to say when it's a certain distance from the camera, cull it out, just like anything out of the main camera view already. But just gives me more control over that. So as you can see back here, the grass will slowly fade in. Not fade in, but pop in, pop out. I thought about using a fade procedure, but then it would require putting a big trigger box around the player itself and having it constantly check to see and then draw the alpha in as the player gets closer to it. So it would have looked better, but wouldn't have been worth the time, in my opinion, because I think it might even hurt performance a bit more, but mostly it's just because I was lazy. So anyway, in terms of gameplay modifications here, gone is the old dive jump where you held down the grab button and jumped, and it's been replaced with a roll attack. So the roll attack will of course do damage, and the reason I got rid of the dive jump is because I've actually implemented diving in general. So now you run, you hit the dive button, and we dive and slide. Depending on how fast you hit the ground when you dive, it will either, you know, continue momentum to keep you sliding, or it will exit the slide. So if we, you'll have to forgive the hiccups here. for some reason, well, like I said before, I didn't draw lighting, so this is all dynamic, and as I'm recording this, it's really taken a hit on the system for some reason this time, and of course Unity 5 and the lack of any sort of light maps isn't helping. But anyway, so if we dive here with no momentum, you'll see we don't have much of a slide, whereas if we do dive and we have momentum, we have more of a slide. This also applies to slopes, so you will of course slide on slopes. That one wasn't a perfect example, but I'm casting a ray and then aligning the player to the surface normal, but instead of rotating the entirety of the player model here, oops, let's go back here. Instead of rotating the main player model, I'm rotating the submesh here so that the main player model itself isn't getting all goofed up. So let me get a dive going here, and if I can find a slope worthy of, well, that was diving into it. That's another check I have I'll elaborate on more later. But instead, why are you not picking up these slopes all of a sudden? I wonder if my raycast isn't big enough now. I was running into some issues here with my raycast, and I actually reduced the range of it because when the player dove and they were above the ground, the raycast would suck them to the ground. So if they dove off something like this, it would suck them to the ground as soon as they dove over the slope. But I think my raycast may be too small, so let me, well, I can't seem to recreate it. That's something I'll just have to tweak. But needless to say here too, if the player's diving and they hit a solid, I will exit the dive. I don't have an animation for it yet. You know, I might take the Mario approach and have him kind of do a bonk his head type thing, but again, it's just a simple raycast forward, and if they're diving, you know, midair and their momentum's a certain value and they the raycast hits something in front of them, I'll abort the slide. So obviously can't dive into things, so let me see. I know I had it working on slopes before. If we can just find a slope here. Yeah, it should be aligning these slopes. I'll have to play with that raycast a little bit more. See there, kinda did it there. So yeah, the raycast is probably not long enough. I will definitely have to play with that a bit more. But needless to say, I am applying that same logic here. If I go up to a higher elevation and I dive, as the player's rigid body velocity in the y direction goes beneath a certain value, I will rotate that model forward here, so that obviously diving down. Oh, we actually got the raycast to work there, so let me see if I can't catch it here. Nope, obviously I just missed it, so never mind with that. So anyway, getting back to the enhancements here, you'll have to forgive my clumsy narration here. Normally I have some notes of what I wanted to document in my dev blog, but I'm just kind of winging this one. So anyway, yep, shader details, we got diving. Diving obviously needs to be a little refined, but for the most part I think I've got it working quite well. And it's actually pretty fun to do if I can get the hit normals and the rotations and everything working right. So actually, yeah, this one was working. It must just be for certain slope sizes. So anyway, let me get back over here. Another thing that I've implemented here, if we can go back, is a racing NPC. So again, Mario 64, if you've ever raced Koopa the Quick, kind of inspired by that. Just using a simple pathfinding, the one that's built into the physics platformer kit, to do the waypoints, but I've kind of refined it so that he's a little more intelligent than just random patrol. So you'll see this is our racing NPC, and my points have obviously been unparented here. But so I've got my points here that the NPC will follow. In fact, let me just exit this and show it anew. So you'll see our points here. You know, he'll come off the edge and follow the points. I have certain points here named jump, so that when the NPC gets to this point and he sees it's named jump, he will of course jump. So I have 2 of those to jump up the ledge here and run around, and this is your goal in terms of where you want to race them to. And if you beat them, you get a card. If you don't, you lose the opportunity to get that card and you have to restart the level to have another shot. Still playing with the idea that that's how it'll work, but for the most part, excuse me, that is how I will go about it. So getting off to, I just spent a lot of time refining a boss battle here in the second level. Sure, we'll save. I don't know what changed. And this boss is going to be kind of just a bigger version of a regular guy, but he will have phases that he will enter for you to fight him in. Alright, there we go. And where am I? This one. This will be our enemy boss. So, I'll just kind of show you quickly how he's working here. Again, it's just a state machine. When he's in state, pursuit, do this. When he's in state stomp, do this. When he's in state vulnerable, he's vulnerable to attack, things like that. So, you walk in, doors closed, still playing with camera. If you didn't see, obviously you didn't see, but the lights in the arena here come on before he pursues you. And I'm actually working with the camera here to calculate the distance between our player and the boss so that I can adjust the variables as needed. That wave should have looked a little more prevalent. I'll have to play with that renderer here, but depending on how far we get from our NPC or from our boss here. Oh yeah, that's why he's being funny, because he's in phase 1 or the final phase, so he's faster and more powerful and does more attacks. But you'll see here as I'm moving, you can see my offset down here is being increased or decreased based off the distance between our player and the boss. So that was a quick way for me, well, not a quick way, I spent a lot of time trying to get the camera right until I decided, hey, I could just gather the distance and use that to calculate my offset here so that I could maintain visibility of the boss and... Oops, that shouldn't have gone like that. So I can maintain visibility of the boss and the player at the same time without the player having to manually constantly move the camera to find the boss. So beyond that, like I said, I really should have made notes for this, but I'm just kind of winging this one real quick to get out a dev blog here before I want to release a playable demo of this first level. Oh, I introduced fade transitions as well. So, for example here, I have an intro to the level, and you'll see here that it will fade out, and I also have the fade out, fade in transitions for when they go to bonus areas, things like that. So, again, pretty simple. Got a title here for our level. We got a simple flyby kind of showing you the game. If you hit the jump button, you can bypass it, but it'll give you this, so you have to hit it twice. After 3 seconds, it goes away, so you hit it again, and we're out of that. Skipping cutscenes, I'll probably implement that for all of my cutscenes, but that's a bit away. I'm still working on, obviously, getting simple things like my game mechanics here to work properly so that we can actually get dive effects and not a player looking awkward sliding. So again, that'll be something I'll be refining here in just a little bit. So beyond that, that's pretty much about what it's been. Unfortunately, there's not too much to detail here. I mean, some major changes have taken place, but a lot of what I've been doing, I feel like, is my time refining the bugs and whatnot for the sliding mechanics. So before I end this video here, I obviously have to fix the dialogue sizes here. I've been playing with the GUI a lot too to try to get it to work, but so yep, you'll see our NPC races here. We'll drop down. We'll be approaching our jump node here soon, and we jump. Just like always, or simple enough. Yeah, why are these button presses are being missed because of the fact that oh, here, I also have a checkbox in front of our NPC, so if any rigid body or anything gets in its way, it will knock it out of the way. But as you can see, we lost our race here, so we don't get our card. But anyway, now I lost my train of thought, naturally. But yeah, so that's pretty much about it. He'll run, he'll knock stuff out of his way. If the player wants to be funny and decide to stack up a bunch of boxes to confuse him, ain't gonna work, because he is going to knock him over. I don't have him apply damage to the boxes because I don't want him breaking things that the player may want, so all he's doing now is knocking them over. Of course, if they're set to take impact damage, that won't matter, because then they will in fact take damage anyway. But most of what I'm checking for here is after the player picks it up to flag it to take impact damage, so that other things aren't breaking boxes all the time, and that our player can actually throw them and break them if they so choose, instead of them just falling out of the sky or being knocked around or something like that and causing them to break, and next thing you know, the player's sitting there wondering why they can't pick up something or break something that they should have been able to. So, with that being said, I will, like I said, be fixing up some bugs here, and hopefully I will have a playable demo of this level out in the next few days. And on that note, I will wrap it up, and look forward to getting something playable out and getting the feedback for it.